what would you tell yourself? And this is a larger question of maybe some advice to people just getting into training or coming out of training. It's their first month. But what would you tell yourself, what you know now in a year, back to when the first week when you came out of training?
So I think the first thing I would say is that coming out of training, before you go to market and you tell your story, make sure that you are a generalist in all the different products. That you don't have to know everything, but just know enough to be able to sell the sizzle, and to know what to look for. Perfect your elevator pitch. I probably should have spent a little more time and maybe creating some nomenclature, some leave behinds, things like that, and give me kind of a reason to follow up and to call. I wish I would have spent maybe more time focusing on some of the other products than just narrowing strictly on real estate, because those transactions can take a long time and they don't always pan out. And kind of going back to your pay the bills, the three kind of bucket model. I didn't spend a lot of time in the beginning on some of those product sets that could have been quicker wins. And, obviously, the more revenue that comes in, the less pressure you feel. And so there was some deferred gratification in revenue. So I'd say, making sure that you spend time delegating your time and your resources to kind of all of the different kind of product sets. And then once you start feeling, have success, determine why you had success in that, and then can you replicate it? How do you replicate it? And then maybe go out and niche and laser focus on maybe one or two or three products.
There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. People always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's two words, hard work and dedication.
If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs in Finance, where we explore the daily lives of CCTG graduates and everybody else in between. In this episode, I'm excited to feature and interview Kevin Smith of BMF Advisors. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Kris. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, and I'll just note, this is the first podcast that I'm actually wearing a hat because my plumbing in my house was interrupted today, and had to call a plumber, and I could not take a shower. So, in any event, but I'm here, so it's be the first interview doing it with a hat on, but it's casual, so we're good. We're good. All right. So Kevin, thanks for taking the time to be on this. It is good value. A lot of people, not just incoming people, but current graduates look forward to these things. So be curious to see how your year went. My understanding, you came through this time last year. Is that correct?
Correct. Literally a year to the date.
Yeah. Year to the date. Wow. So it's perfect timing. Before we get into how your year is doing, can you tell me what was life like before CCTG, and how did you even find us?
Sure. So prior to finding you all and going through CCTG, I've been a career banker most of my life. Started kind of in retail development, kind of worked my way up to different kind of middle management roles. Led a team with one of the big four banks, kind of the commercial middle market space. Took my skill sets over to a community bank and helped kind of scale and grow that here in the East Tennessee market. We had, I guess, a different scene of opinions, and so we decided to go different ways, and took a little time off to find what I wanted to do next, and much advice to my wife. She said, why don't you stay a little close to reservation, stay within finance, and just kind of seeing what was kind of going out in the marketplace, interest rates rising, anticipating, and just seeing what has kind of been some of the other kind of silos down in the past. Decided that, I think, brokering a lot of myself with a bunch of different balance sheets would be the way to go, and did not know exactly how to do that. And so that's where I found you all. And it's been a great experience so far.
Do you remember how you found us? Like how did you, I get what your plan was when you parted ways, but how did you find us? Like, what were you? Did you stumble across this, or do you even remember?
It was Google.
Yeah.
I had some thoughts and ideas on how to do this on my own, and just through numerous searches. And then I can't remember the gentleman's name, but I think we spoke probably 3 or 4 or 5 times afterwards before I actually committed. But I was really impressed by everything that I saw, the podcasts, kind of the continuing ed that was being pushed out by you all, and that's what helped kind of solidify the decision.
So suffice to say, we were essentially exactly what you were looking for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Now you came through as a platinum member, right? Is that correct? A platinum graduate?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
All right. Tell me about that week you were here. Did you attend live or you were in person?
I did. I was in person. Yeah.
Yeah, you were in person. Okay, that's what I thought. So tell everybody how that first week was in training.
It was great. So it was my first time being there in Albany, New York. So always it's an exciting time to tour a new city, and just everybody was there at CCTG and Prime were just great, welcoming. It was just really turnkey as far as arrival and getting everything set up. I enjoyed it. I honestly, I remember I got really excited as we were going through the different product sets, because again, having a background in finance and working at banks that had very limited, kind of silos of products or skill sets, I continued to share with the folks there that I don't know if you realize how good you have it, having all these different resources to your, at your beck and call. And so every day that went on, I was getting more and more and more excited. And now looking back a year later, I mean, everything you said has come true. I mean, all the blind spots, the pitfalls, the things to avoid, the things to do. I can attest all the information was delivered and the format. If you follow the process, it should work for you.
And I appreciate you saying that, but even if you follow, you try to follow the process, but as you have to really work the model, right? I mean,
Yes.
the onus is, we can teach all we can teach, but you got to really work the model. I mean, talk about, maybe talk about that first maybe month or two out of training. Like, what were some of the things you were experiencing?
Wow. Well, so I had the model. I left with all the information. Where to go first was kind of the first thing. And so really at that point, kind of making the announcement, making the splash, letting the world, past and present connections, what I'm now doing. And so upon return, having everything kind of, working, website, everything was up and going, went to LinkedIn and just started just blasting out kind of my new role. And then it was just going out and really getting in front of centers of influences, people that could, I could tell my story too, that would further tell my story and to help bring clients that I could assist them with their clients. I would say that, I went down some paths and with some individuals or some, clients that maybe I couldn't have solved, that now I've learned I should, cut bait a little sooner, but really just kind of was trying to be strategic, and really kind of finding where and who could send me viable business, and that'd be where I could be most effective.
Good. Yeah. So sounds like you really went out and kind of penetrated your network, your existing relationship, right? I mean,
Sure.
That's kind of, at least kind of where it seems to be there where you went first, which we preach in class, as you can attest to.
Sure.
What about what was, before we talk about some of the successes, what were some of the hardest things in that first couple of months that
Probably credentializing myself. I think that was the hard part. People knew me as the banker that could or could not do things,
right?
But letting them know how I'm different and in my new role and capacity. For whatever reason, within the banking space, brokers have kind of had this like negative kind of stigma to them. And so I really wanted to differentiate myself from that. And that's why I went with the name advisor in my name, because I want to be more than just that individual that's going to attract and find and source capital. I want to use some of my other backgrounds and expertise to help with those clients. So that was a challenge, and, and again, you would go out and you would tell your story, and then a week would happen, and there would be no deal flow. And so I had to keep myself kind of motivated and just continue to just know that, your network is your net worth. That's what I kind of preach. And just the more that I would get out there and just stay consistent with that and follow up, eventually, opportunities would start to come my way. And then as I got reps under my belt, became more confident in the certain product sets, and then I could be a little more a kind of niche with those relationships and what I could offer.
Right. It sounds like, you had to kind of change your brand, like you said, like, people knew you for a certain segment or maybe a certain product segment. But now, as you know, with this model, you have so much more to offer. You had to really re-educate your network, which can be time consuming.
Sure. Absolutely.
What products did you gravitate to? Did you find yourself gravitating to when you left class? Is there any particular product segment that you concentrate on?
Coming out of class, real estate was kind of my jam going into this. And obviously there were some headwinds in the marketplace. I saw a lot of real estate opportunities coming from some referral partners and some of my banking connections. SBA though is probably been one of my most favorite products as of late. And I would say over the last year, I've really kind of built a brand around working with those clients, either from the startup and pre-revenue stages to business acquisition, and even with some of the new changes with partner buyouts. A lot of people, I think, and what I learned here locally and with the banks, they kind of either they stay away from it because they don't understand it, or they don't have the willingness to kind of go through the steps to do an SBA loan. But through this program, we've got great partners, in that product set. And it's probably one of the only ones you can lend on projections and have collateral shortfalls. So,
Sure.
I've had a lot of success with that over the last 12 months.
Good. Yeah. And so why don't you tell us about maybe a couple of, it sounds like, you've been successful. Do you see yourself seeing the light, like after kind of getting all the cobwebs out in the first couple of, I know you're closing deals. Want to tell us about a couple of deals or maybe a memorable deal that you closed?
Sure. Probably the most memorable one and it was early on, but just truly felt like a success, and that I had made the right decision, was doing the right thing. There was a client who, actually, I'll just say an individual, had moved across the state to buy a company here in our footprint. And, had limited resources as far as financial resources here. And so was really entrusting the current owners to help direct him on how to buy this business. It was a very viable business, looked great, had real estate involved. It was a commercial glass and commercial painting, business. And he started with the owner's existing financial institution. They took him down a path, weeks turn into months. They come back and they can only approve, a less than sale price amount, but without any explanation. So he then walks down the street to the next bank, starts the process over again with the same outcome. And this time he's getting frustrated. So that bank says, well, look, maybe you should go talk to one of our CDFIs in town. Maybe they can help. So then they meet with him. They go down the path, and long story short, they couldn't deliver. But I had called on them and had a relationship over there at the CDFI and said, look, we've got 7A. And so they make a warm kind of introduction. I get on the client. We pre-flight this deal. I'm pretty excited, but I can easily tell that the potential buyer is just being very reserved and not really opening up, and just didn't know if this was going to go through or not. So tell him what I need. That was on a Friday. On Saturday morning, he calls me and he just goes off. Should I be buying this business? Is this going to happen? I've been trying to source financing for over 6 months. Tells me he's living in the seller's basement and has agreed to work for free until this acquisition. So he said, I'm burning my earnest money. I run up credit card debt. I moved across the country for this thing. Like, is this going to happen? And how are you any different? Because the last group said they did SBA too. So, it was pretty quick back in that, and the other institutions had not looked at anything outside the real estate. They weren't lending the blue sky. We were able to partner with one of our SBA preferred lenders, and we exceeded his expectations. We closed, I think it was in a little over 45 days, full acquisition price, gave him the working capital. He's been my biggest advocate and biggest fan because he was literally at that point at his wit's end. So not the biggest deal, but probably one of the most memorable because he had exhausted what he thought all options, and we were able to save the day and put somebody new into business entrepreneurship.
Didn't that feel good helping somebody out like that?
Yeah, really does. Really does.
You're feeling, especially someone in that situation.
Yeah, it was. I never want to be the banker of last resort, so I really try to tell these stories to get on the front end because this guy could have been making money, well before summertime, before this thing had kind of come into my lap.
Sure. So tell us, do you and I know you've closed numerous other deals, so congratulations on all that happening this year. Because people always want to know, do you work from home or do you have your own office, like in a commercial?
No, I've got an office. During COVID, we did the work from home, and for me, it's just I'm not as productive. I need structure. I need and honestly, having a lease payment also was an office rent payment. It motivated me. I've got to get in here. I got to do things. So it honestly, for me, it helped with the branding and just everything else that I can be found. You can come see me. We've got an office, and it just kind of helps again credentialize me versus maybe some of the other folks out there.
Yeah. I agree. I'm the same way. I mean, I actually need to be in an office.
Yeah.
Tell me about. So, do you have anybody working underneath you? Any independent contractors, or is it just yourself right now?
So, I took your advice. I recall from that you said make it a year. Go a year. Before you start onboarding someone. And this month I am starting to bring someone on. We've kind of moonlighted in the past. I've got some referral agreements I've got out there where I've been able to kind of incentivize folks to be kind of a silent salesperson. But this is an individual that he's got a lot of assets and will be a value add, and will allow me to further scale and spend time on things I can do within the business that will allow us to grow. But I think I'll also be a good revenue generator. So
good. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
That's you're doing exactly what we kind of say. Wait a year, get some transactions with your belt, and then you could talk the talk and walk the walk. What do you think, looking back now in a year, right? Like, what would you tell yourself? And this is a larger question of maybe some advice to people just getting into training or coming out of training. It's their first month. But what would you tell yourself, what you know now in a year, back to when the first week when you came out of training?
So I think the first thing I would say is that coming out of training, before you go to market and you tell your story, make sure that you are a generalist in all the different products. That you don't have to know everything, but just know enough to be able to sell the sizzle and to know what to look for. Perfect your elevator pitch. I probably should have spent a little more time and maybe creating some nomenclature, some leave behinds, things like that, and give me kind of a reason to follow up and to call. I wish I would have spent maybe more time focusing on some of the other products than just narrowing strictly on real estate, because those transactions can take a long time and they don't always pan out. And kind of going back to your pay the bills, the three kind of bucket model. I didn't spend a lot of time in the beginning on some of those product sets that could have been quicker wins. And obviously, the more revenue that comes in, the less pressure you feel. And so there was some deferred gratification in revenue. So I'd say making sure that you spend time delegating your time and your resources to kind of all of the different kind of product sets. And then once you start feeling, have success, determine why you had success in that, and then can you replicate it? How do you replicate it? And then maybe go out and niche and laser focus on maybe one or two or three products.
And that's good. That's great advice. Hearing it from that perspective, in kind of the pre-production notes here, I see that you've kind of highlighted something here that I want to bring to the table and talk about. But and the reason is because there's a lot of grads that do this like when they get out of training. But you say here that early on you caught yourself prioritizing on things that you thought were necessary to be successful. So like you were worrying about CRM systems and over engineering the client process and workflows and all these things. But and you said here eventually you came to the realization that none of that matters until you have deal flow. So you got to go out and get deal flow before you worry about like all these processes and software and all that stuff. Is that can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. So I think honestly, Chris, a lot of that was minutia and maybe just creating busyness out of fear of what is going to happen next,
Right.
or what won't happen next.
Right.
And so, yeah, if I have this great CRM system and I have this fancy website and web forms and an automated phone system, it'll just make my life easier and business will happen. No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And so I had to kind of pull myself out of that pity party and say, the only way this is going to happen is I've got to go out and I've got to market myself. And the most effective way of doing that was, in person with a lot of follow-up. So now, a year later, now I can look back and say, okay, where am I spending? Where is the busyness versus business? And now I feel compelled. Okay, let's maybe do a CRM. Let's find ways to add maybe more secure portals and things of that sort. But again, your network is your net worth, and
You gotta have the business first.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yes, that was, and I think that's a common, I don't say mistake, but a lot of people think you just have to be crisp, and you leave CCTG well equipped and prepared because you have branded email, you have a website, you have everything that someone can use to say, okay, this individual, this corporation, it's legit.
You do, but the problem is, from where I sit, is we see grads all the time. Just they rather than going out and start to get the business, they're worrying about putting 3 additional pages on their website than what we're contractually obligated to give, or they're worried about changing the color of a logo, and they spend 3 weeks just really hammering down. And at the end of the day, none of that matters.
Yeah.
You got to bring deal flow in. Nobody's sitting there going, well, gee, your logo is red and it has this size font, therefore I'm not going to do business with you. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah. Well, I was going to say that client that I referenced earlier, I guarantee you, he never went to my website. He knows nothing of what BMF Advisors is or does, other than the referring partner that sent him to me and the transaction I delivered for him. So. But that's, I think that was just kind of that fear of launch, or, I wouldn't say failure to launch, but delaying of launch. You just got to get out there and tell your story and do it with authenticity and, with service and quick follow-up and eventually it'll happen.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What I'd like to do is ask you a couple of questions, kind of off just so people can kind of get to tell your personality a little bit. And we do this every podcast. But question number one is, if you weren't in finance, right? What do you think you'd be doing as a career? Like if you weren't even a banker, none of this. I mean, what do you think you'd be doing?
So,
or what would you want to do? What would you want to do if you could pick something?
So I thought I wanted to be an attorney. I like debate. I like bringing people around to my way of thinking. Had all intents plans to go to law school, missed the window to apply, fell into finance, and then I decided, well, I don't really want to be an attorney. I just want to make what an attorney makes. As I've kind of moved into this role and it's got a growing family, I want a lifestyle business. I want something that's going to allow me to do the things that I enjoy doing with the people that I love and enjoy being with. This is allowing me to do that. the consolation prize. I love being outdoors. We just got back from a big 3-week trip out in Colorado. So every time I'm out there, I can see myself running a ski shop or a mountain bike shop, and having just the Sentinel State is the Vista View background.
Yeah, that's good. So you're a little bit of an outdoorsman. You enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah. It's my therapy.
And where are you based out of? I didn't ask you that in the beginning.
Yeah, we're in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. What's one thing in your life that people usually don't know about you? Like just by meeting you the first time, like, is there something that you're into that no one would think that you're into, or something of that nature?
Sure. So, being a Gen Xer and a product of the 90s, I grew up in the golden age of hip hop. And one thing that a lot of people don't know about me in college, I think it was going in the summer of my sophomore year. I started a DJ business.
Wow.
Went to all these parties where, I call them button pushers, but just these CD players were just literally just playing CDs. And I had a friend of mine who was that kind of played with records, and I said, you know what? There's an opportunity here where I could actually do real DJing up here and throw real parties and actually mix music and have more of a kind of a vibe going than just up there just kind of pushing buttons. And so I did that in college. It was a lot of fun. Got to do some stuff on the radio, and with regret, I sold the turntables many years ago, but I still have all the records. So someday I may pick it back up. But it was a fun part of life. It was a fun way to finance college and have some spending money.
You still enjoy 90s hip hop?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly different than the music today.
Yeah, it's a lot of those guys are still touring, so it's good music will never die.
Yeah, for sure. That is something that I wouldn't know about you, or I wouldn't suspect. If you could sit down with one person, living or not living, right, and sit down with them for an hour, who would it be? Kind of pick their brain and have a conversation.
Where this could change by the week, I would say this week, Anthony Bourdain.
Okay.
He was just, again, I think he left this planet too soon. He's a prolific writer, worldly travel, just had a really good, just from what I've seen of him on TV and what I've read, just his social commentary, just his view on life and how not to take it so seriously. I really enjoy that at this stage of my life. And so he would be a guy I'd love to sit down and have a beer with across the bar.
Great.
At dinner.
Yeah. Great dude. What, so if you look at your career now, right, what you're doing, your business, what's one thing that you absolutely love about what you do and can't live without? And then I'm going to follow up to that and say, what's one thing that you just absolutely despise about the business that you wish you could do without? Yeah.
Sure. It's cliche. I love helping people. In financial services prior to starting this company, building teams and helping people. I mean, was kind of my jam. That's what I did. It's what I was known for in the community. And so now I have so many different ways to assist and to help folks. And it's not just helping a customer, but it's also helping people that have customers. So it really feels like the sphere of my influence and what I can offer and bring to the table is just continue to grow. So money will always be there, but as long as I still have that fulfillment, that gratification, I'm going to stick with this. But that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
What I could live without. There are, as I said earlier, there's some bad characters out there that give the industry, kind of a bad name. I shouldn't say a bad name, a bad rap.
Yep.
Why someone would entrust to send their financials to someone operating out of a Gmail or a Yahoo address is beyond me. I'm not that guy. Will never be. But I would like to see, again, maybe some reform in that. So we we could stand out and be recognized, and the good would be kind of separated, from I guess the bad or the mediocre out there in the space.
So you've run into other brokers that obviously were not CCTG brokers, but just other brokers that it was evident that they had no idea what the hell they were doing.
Oh, I mean, and you said it, like, avoid the broker chain. And I just remember like hearing that just ingrained in my brain. And when you're early, you fall into that, right? And so I take the first call. And again, I'm just, let me speak to the client. I can't do that. Well, then I'm not going to help you. But how much information and just that gets shared on the interwebs of just people that entrust folks just because of, maybe what they've said or what they've, give the persona or moonlight it as. But, and so I feel like when I'm actually going out there, I'm probably having to combat against some of that. So, if more of those folks could be held accountable, that would make my life a little easier.
Yeah. No, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and interest rates, if they could kind of stop climbing, it obviously creates a lot more opportunity for us, but deals are harder to pencil, so got to work a little harder.
Okay. All right. That's a great answer. I mean, that's a great perspective. We've been battling that for years, which call the Joker brokers.
Joker brokers.
So that's what we call them, Joker brokers. All right, now we come to the time in the podcast where we say flip the script, and you feel free to ask me anything you want. It doesn't have to even be about finance, CCTG. It could be anything you want.
Sure.
Yours, my friend.
So keep it kind of within industry. We always talk a lot about our successes, but obviously there's memorable losses that occur. What just as you were going up and coming up through the ranks, what was maybe one of the most memorable losses, lost deals, et cetera, that you experienced, and kind of your take on it, how you overcame it, and improved it from going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think, a memorable loss, probably I've had a lot of losses, but and they all kind of blend together, I guess, if you're talking about industry specific. More
Sure.
importantly, losing deals. There was a deal, one of the first ones, which usually one of your first ones is usually the one that's most memorable. After that, you just kind of take it as a grain of salt, and it is what it is. But there was a very large transaction that I was working on in South America early on in my career. And it was, and it totaled, like, it was a big number. It was like $250 million. And it involved, there was a lot of players involved. There's a lot of layers involved. And there was a lot of, what was time consuming was bringing in different levels of capital. You had to bring in different forms of capital, not just one provider, several different providers. And I remember it was like 7-8 months into it. And, I was on conference calls every week with the client, and I was working it, and it was just myself working it. And, as being young in the industry, you're like, wow, when this happens, this is going to be, that's what keeps you motivated, right? I mean, it keeps you motivated on what that paycheck's going to be, which was rather significant. And, at the last minute, I had about 8 of the 10 pieces of the puzzle put together. The other 2 were coming shortly. And, I remember the client just called me up one day and said, hey, listen, it's been 8-9 months now. I know we're almost there. However, I just got an offer. He had owned the land. He was building a resort. He had owned the land already. He said, I just got a lucrative offer from a big private equity group to overpay for my land. They're going to give me a little bit of equity interest, and they're going to do this project. I'm not going to be the lead on it. And he goes, I'm sorry, and man, it felt like my soul got ripped out, because every day you're just working on it, right? So, it was hard, but I think what came out of that is like at the end of the day, you just have to accept that's what happens with this business. There's no way you can control that. I know some brokers that try to get upfront fees and hold the client to their feet, but even then, that's not going to matter. It's not going to stop them from doing what they have to do and what's right in their mind. So if anything, it's more of a problem. Because they'll ask for it back and you get all sorts of problems. You don't want to get into that stuff. So I just accepted it. The longer, the more you accept it, like, look, I've had a lot of wins, but you got to take the losses with the wins, and the losses are just part of the game. It's just easier to swallow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I appreciate sharing that. Got time for some more questions?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So part of what led me now to onboarding this new associate is so I can further improve on the work-life balance or work-life integration, whatever you want to refer to it as. You having different entities, wear many hats. What are some things that you do to help the work-life balance for you and yours?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, for me, the work-life balance is always imbalanced. It's it's imbalanced on the side of work. Because even when I'm trying to enjoy things outside of work, I'm working. I'm thinking about work. I got my phone with me. I'm replying to emails, right? I think that I've adopted kind of the philosophy, which not everybody does, and not everybody will think it's right, but it's me, right? And that's the only one that matters in terms of how I think. I've adopted the philosophy that like work, it really comes first, right? And everything else falls underneath that, because if your work's not right, then nothing else is right. So I think that's why I give a lot of priority and attention to at least what I do. But so there's always going to be that imbalance, and so it's always a struggle to balance that, if you will, right? Sometimes you get there, sometimes you don't. But one thing that I do have learned, when I was younger, I was, it was very, very imbalanced because you're starting to get things off the ground. But one thing as I get older, and I learned that like you have to take the time or find the time to do something that you really, really enjoy. And try to do it as often as possible, because at the end of the day, I've met so many people, and you hear stories of people that just work. And at the end of the day, you don't know if you're going to be here the next day. Right. You just don't know. And at the end of the day, what good is it if work, but you can't really enjoy any of the fruits of your labor? So that kind of changed for me, a little bit in the last 10 years, where, I started to do things that I find enjoyment outside of work, and try to do it as often as possible while still maintaining that balance, if you will. But just force myself to do it, because at the end of the day, you're gonna, you gotta feel good, right? You gotta feel good, and I feel good about working. Don't get me wrong, right? I love what I do, but at the end of the day, you got to take what you enjoy. So it's a struggle. It is a struggle.
Sure.
I've slowly come around. You have to smell the roses to even know the roses exist.
I love it. That's good. That's good. I know when I was up there last year, we had dinner. There was a lot of car talk going around the table. So, best production car ever made, or maybe top 3 year, make, model, if you can't pick one.
Well, are we talking supercars? Or are we talking, Well, I don't know if I could. I don't. Well, I could probably answer that question in two different answers. I mean, for me, probably the best. I mean, year, make, and model. I can tell you that when it comes to sports cars, right? Probably the best for me, the best cars made, and I'm not talking about a supercar. I just mean like an everyday driver, but it's a sports car, would be Mercedes AMGs. you know, and the reason is because those engines are hand built. The AMG models, at least, are hand built in Germany. They have two levels. They have where they make the V12s, although they're phasing out the V12s now, and they make the V8s. And it's one man. Their philosophy is one man, one engine. So there's one mechanic, and they have normally there's an assembly line that every other manufacturer has where everybody builds the engine. And Mercedes AMG, and only AMG, not regular Mercedes, but an AMG Mercedes, which is the sport version. They have one mechanic that puts together the engine. That's his sole job, and he has all the tools around him and parts, and he puts together the engine, and he hand stamps the engine, and it has his his name on it, and they treat it. It's like an honor as a mechanic in Germany to have that or get to have that title. So the reason I say that is because for pretty much all of my driving life, when I had the ability to afford one, I've always driven that for a daily driver. Some model, it could be an S-Class AMG, it could be a, just all different models. But my point is, I never had problems with the engine. Those engines you can kind of beat to the ground. I would say if you're getting into really exotic, right? I would have to say one of the best solid chassis or modern day cars that are ever built was a Ferrari 458. The 458 Ferrari. It's a classic model. They don't make them anymore. I think they stopped making them in 2016, if I'm not correct, or if I am correct. But anyway, I think it was like from 2009 to 2016. But that car, it's V8, it's naturally aspirated, and you can beat on those. You can absolutely beat on those cars, and they're solid engines. And I have one myself, and it just they're solid cars. So I would say the Ferrari 458 if you're talking like a supercar.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. What about you? Are you into cars?
Yes, but my taste buds changed. I'm Porsche fan, I guess, kind of growing up in my younger years.
Yeah.
After my last trip to Colorado, I want a decked out Sprinter van.
Okay. Yeah. You could put your mountain bikes in there. You could put, those are cool.
And it actually served as a mobile office. I picked up one of Elon's Starlink, mobile kind of satellite internet. And, we're issuing term sheets from state parks at 7,500, feet altitude. So,
with the Sprinter,
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Those are cool. I know some guys that have converted that like that, a mobile office, believe it or not. That's right. It's funny, but it's all about productivity. Cool.
Absolutely. But if I had my pick right now, I'd love to have one of the last years of the probably like a 97. I think it's the 993, the Porsche 911. I think it was the last of the air cooled.
Yeah.
So those are cool cars.
You know what my problem with Porsches is? And I'll tell you, I respect Porsche. I respect it. Hell of a car. But the problem is, you line up 20 models from each year, going back 20 years, they all look the same.
Right.
They all look so. I mean, I respect the performance. I respect the racing heritage. Sure. I do. But when you look at a Porsche, just I don't know. It doesn't. They all look the same. They don't really evoke that emotion, at least for me. But
sure,
everybody has their opinion. But in any event, all right. Well, I think that that does it. I could sit here and talk cars for ages, but that does it here for this episode of Entrepreneurs in Finance. Listen, I really want to thank you for taking the time to be here. Kevin, I know you're busy and you got a lot going on. So thanks for finally catching up and share your experience of what you went through and what you're doing now. And I wish you much success in the next year to come.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I will see you in Las Vegas.
I'll see you in a month.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll see you in a month. All right, everybody. Well, that does it for this episode on Entrepreneurs in Finance. I hope you enjoyed this one. And we will catch you on the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our CCTG app, which you can do based on if you have an Android or an iPhone. But in any event, we will catch you on the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Thank you.
There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. You know, people always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication.
If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business.